In this section of our training, we're going to look at putting questions in your quiz. So if you're in the quiz editor and you click on the questions tab, you'll be faced with three buttons: new question group, and find questions. We're going to start with new question, but be aware that you can create a question group. So if you want to have several like questions in one group, you can do that. Maybe you have a question group that is cellular structure, and all the questions in the group have to do with cellular structure. You can create a question group and populate it with questions having to do with that particular part of the subject. So that's what new question group is for, and I'll show you that in a minute. First, let's look at the basic new question button. So if you click on that, you'll see you're faced with a question, and you can name the question here if you'd like to. You don't have to. Questions will be numbered automatically for your students, so in the student view, so they will be numbered, but if you want to name the question, you have that option right here. This is the question type. In this case, the default is multiple choice, and we'll look at the various question types available, and then also the number of points for this question. I'm going to set this to 10. You can go back and set the points later if you forget. You can go back and edit these questions at any time. For right now, I want to enter a question into my rich text editor, and I'm going to go ahead and take a question I already have created, and I just have this in a text file. Some of you will probably use Microsoft Word. Maybe you'll have your quizzes in Word, and you can copy and paste into the quiz editor or the question editor. So I'm going to go ahead and paste my question in here. Now, you can also put images in, you can put links into internet sites, you can put math formulas in if that's appropriate for the question, and we can go through those things. For right now, we're looking at a basic multiple choice question. Now, after we put the question in, we're going to put our answers in. So this one will be 10,000 tons. Oops, bear with me. This will be 100,000 tons. This will be 100,000 pounds. It's not really a trick question. I just want to make sure people are paying attention in class. So there we go. So we have our four answers here. By default, Canvas is always going to select the first one as the correct answer. All you need to do is hover over the correct answer and click on the arrow, and this answer, 100,000 tons, is the correct answer for how many tons of coal are burned to generate electricity in the U.S. every day. So we want to make sure we check our correct answer, make sure that's the right one. Next, you'll see these boxes underneath each answer, some of them red, some of them green. This box is the feedback box. So if you want your student to have feedback after they answer the question, you would put it in these boxes. And I'm going to show you what that looks like in a minute. You'll notice there's one underneath every answer, but there's also three at the bottom. So these are global in nature. So you can go ahead and click on this, and for the correct answer, oops, sorry. You can put a message in. For the incorrect answer, any incorrect answer, you can put a message in. And we can click done. General answer comments is the gray box. You can use that as well if you want to expand upon the answer or explain the answer. This can be displayed in either case. I'm going to leave that blank for now. So you can see I have correct answer comments and wrong answer comments in for the student. This is a very useful learning tool. As you all know, feedback is really where learning happens, so it's a best practice to use these feedback boxes whenever possible. And if you want to have a different wrong answer comment for each different answer, you can do that up here, or if you want one wrong answer comment for any wrong answer, you can do that here. This is certainly the easier way to do it. So we've filled all of this out. We left our general comments blank, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to click on Update Question. And you'll see our question appears here now. 10 points is correct. And if we want to look at the details, we can do that as well. We can do it here. Let's do one more question type really quick. New question. True, false. So there's our true false question. Nixon is buried in Grant's tomb. Of course, the answer to that is false, so we'll just hover over false. Select. As with the multiple choice, we can put feedback in our feedback boxes or general comments. When we're done, we can just go ahead and click on Update Question. You'll notice I forgot to adjust the points on this one. If I want it to be worth 10 points, I can just click on Edit, put my 10 points in, Update Question, and you'll see now I have 2 questions in. One of them is a multiple choice, the other one's a true or false. You'll notice here that there are several other question types. We covered multiple choice and true or false, but there are a number of other question types that you can select from. And you can see when I pull down the list, there's fill in the blank, fill in multiple blanks, matching, formula, essay, file upload, or text, no question, which is a curious selection. That is basically if you just want to put a message in the test in a certain area, maybe to delineate between sections. If you select text, it simply puts a text message in your test or your quiz. So please be aware of that. Some of these other question types, I'm not going to take time to go through creating each one, but I thought I would show you really quick what they look like. I'm going to switch over to my slides here. And I just want to show you a multiple choice from a student view. This is what a multiple choice question looks like from a student view, and you can see in this case we have a mathematical formula, and also you can see our feedback box for correct answer. So it's important that you see what that looks like. But let's go through and look at some of these other ones really quick. True or false, pretty obvious the way that looks. Again, you can see our feedback box there. Fill in the blank is an option you can use. So you can put in the correct answer and the student has to type that in. Here's an example with a feedback box. Essay question, again, pretty obvious what this looks like. This is something that obviously you're going to have to grade later. But you can put a general feedback in there. In this case, thank you for your thoughts. Your response will be graded as soon as possible. You could put a message in here. Your response will be graded by tomorrow, whatever you want to do. A formula question. You can use the formula editor to do that. And I'll show you that in a little bit. Here's what a matching question looks like. So in this case, this one's match the colors with their complementary color. So red, green is correct. Yellow is wrong to match with orange. Correct answer, of course, is violet. And the same here. Blue for violet. The correct answer is orange. So matching questions are good in certain situations, and Canvas gives you a way to do that. Here's a file submission question. This is a little bit different. It's almost like an assignment, but it's something that maybe is timed. So in this case, you might want to have the student write up some notes or submit a Word document and submit it during a test. So that's what file submission is. There's a numerical answer question with feedback. There's a multiple answer question available to you. So maybe there are several answers that are correct. In this case, what year was the Star-Spangled Banner written? And when was it adopted officially as the national anthem for the United States? This shows that Francis Scott Key wrote it in 1814, but it was officially adopted in 1931. And lastly, here's a multiple drop-down question, and that's what this looks like. It is very similar to a multiple fill-in-the-blank, if you will. So in this case, roses are blank, violets are blank, and they can pull down to different options. Red, of course, is correct. Blue, of course, is correct. And you can see the student feedback here for incorrect. So that gives you an idea of what these different question types look like. I'm going to go back to my quiz now. So we haven't put in any of these other question types. I want to point out really quickly some of the editor features in Canvas, especially if you're doing mathematical functions. So if you want to put in something like 3 to the second power, you could put in your 3 and then your 2. Simply highlight superscript right here. So you can do that. The other thing that's available to you for mathematical equations is the math editor. And this brings up a LaTeX math editor box, which will be familiar to some of you who deal with this. And you can put various math symbols in for formulas. And I'm just going to go back to insert. And you'll see it puts the LaTeX math equation into the rich text editor. So if you're dealing with equations and math problems, Canvas has a good way to do that by using the equation editor, which converts LaTeX math symbols to the rich text box. So I'm going to go ahead and cancel this question. And so we have our 2 basic questions in. Each of them are worth 10 points. We can edit those if we want to. And we've learned how to put feedback in for the students. And we've also learned how important it is to give students feedback. The next thing we're going to do is go back and look at some of these other options for creating questions.